All right, it's time for our Week 10 preview. Our first game, definitely not last or least, is Vanderbilt taking on Texas. I have this game, Vanderbilt winning 26-21. I had to think on this one for a while. Originally, I picked Texas to win this game, and after spending a lot of time thinking about it, I don't know why on earth I would pick against Diego Pavia. That just seems like a foolish move. I did that once already this season, and he proved me wrong. And out of all the teams I could have picked him to lose against, it was the team I hate the most, LSU. Going into Nashville and dropping that game. Actually, I should say Diego Pavia took that football game and won it himself. They did not drop that game to them. So I'm not going to doubt Vanderbilt right here in the spot. The real reason that I did the last time was because I felt like the defense they were playing was going to stifle their offense from being as consistent as they had been. And I didn't think to be able to possess the ball the way that they typically do. I was wrong. They didn't punt until the fourth quarter. So uh, I'm having a hard time seeing Texas after how poorly they performed defensively last week in Starkville do what they need to do to slow down Diego Pavia in this game and take the ball from their offense. So I think it'll be really close. Vanderbilt's probably going to need to take everything they possibly can into Austin to win this game. It's going to be a tough one. I think that Texas is going to come to play. They've got a new fire under them with how they finished that last game. I don't care who they start at quarterback. I'm expecting the same result offensively, and I think it'll be better. I'm expecting a little bit more from Texas in this game, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to beat Diego Pavia and Clark Lay and company. I bet Vanderbilt probably will win by a touchdown.
Texas has not played a home game since they beat Sam Houston 55 to nothing on September 20th. I think this will be a very welcome home game for them. They've played 4 games in a row away from home, 3 of those on the road, and then the neutral site game at the Red River Shootout. I actually like them to get a big win here. Really, just my gut is telling me that. I hope Vanderbilt wins. I will be cheering for Vanderbilt, but I just feel in my gut that Texas is going to find a way to get this done. I like the Longhorns 24 to 17.
Yeah, I think that whatever result we end up getting, you probably will be able to pick one or two of plays in this game that decided the final outcome. Which in most close football games that can be the case, but given how Texas and Vandy have been winning football games as of late, I think you can pick very specific instances where they have key players make big plays in big moments. Um, I I really like what Vanderbilt's running backs have been able to do. Texas is going to have to key in on that. If they can stop the run, that will probably be the biggest key to this game for Texas because Vanderbilt's passing offense did not look great last week against Missouri. I think there's a lot to be said there. Texas's secondary has been weak at times. They got burnt last week. So maybe Vandy finds a way to exploit that. But overall, I think there is points to be had on both sides of the field. Vanderbilt had their best defensive performance of the season last week, in my opinion, but I've also seen them give up some points. Being in Austin, I think that they struggle a little bit more than they did last week with Missouri team that had to put in a freshman quarterback. We may see a different quarterback from Texas this week. So Vanderbilt may not have a lot of film on the quarterback that Texas is going to be starting. So that will probably play an impact in the game as well. I expect Cedric Alexander to be a focal point in the offense this week. He needs to get more touches. I know McKalen Young has been playing really well, but Cedric Alexander is still one of the best backs in the SEC. And with the right volume at certain points in the game, I think he should be an impact player here. So I'm excited about this one. It's probably my favorite matchup of the whole week. I think it'll be probably the best game out of all of these that we're covering. Next game we've got Georgia versus Florida in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. This game is always entertaining. I say always, most of the time. We've had a couple bad Florida teams waltz into Jacksonville and get waxed in the past couple years, but I don't think that this is going to be one of those teams. I know that Florida's had a down year so far, but I feel like this is going to be really competitive. I think they're starting to do kind of what they did last year, not to the same degree and variance, but this football team has a lot of competitive juice still left in them. Billy Napier is not the head coach there anymore, obviously, so that definitely plays a big role here. But this team still has a competitive streak left in them, which you typically don't see. So I expect a pretty solid performance from DJ Lagway and company here. I think that they're going to lean on Jaden Ball in the run game. Georgia's defense is as susceptible as they have ever been, and I think Florida's going to take advantage of that. I think we see some points in this game, probably more than we're used to seeing in this game overall from both teams. The games where we've seen a lot of points have typically been blowouts, but last year, from for those of you who remember, DJ Lagway played really well early in this game and took the lead and got hurt. Did not return to this game, and Florida puts in a complete no-name QB, and they just sell. It went all downhill from there. They didn't have a chance with this new quarterback. I can't even remember what his name was. I don't even think he's on the team anymore. But DJ Lagway is healthy right now, as far as we know. If he can stay healthy in this game, he gives them a chance to win. I mean, Georgia's been skating by in some of these games. Ole Miss, Tennessee, they did lose to Alabama, but they also could have won that game. So we're looking at a Georgia team with a very slim margin for error. I think that if Georgia can keep the offense rolling like they have been the past couple of weeks, they'll win this football game. I have them winning 35-27 off of a Gunnar Stockton masterclass once again, but I think he's going to have to present a really strong run game in this game. I don't think he's going to be able to have everything he wants through the air. He's going to have to show his dual threat side a lot in this game.
I think we're going to see a different looking Florida team in this game after firing Billy Napier. We've seen this happen with a few other teams, fire their coach and then come out and play pretty well. I think we see that here, but it's not going to be enough to beat Georgia. Georgia has shown that they are very good in close competitive games, and I think that will prevail again here. I have them hanging on to win this one 31-28 against Florida, but a very good competitive game.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, this Georgia defense not being what they have been frees up DJ Lagway to play the kind of football that he honestly plays his best at, which is kind of a hero style of football when there's not a lot of pressure. When he can kind of just let it all out on the field and play to his fullest extent with protection, that is, from the offensive line, he plays like a madman. Like when he played against Ole Miss, I mean, we've been getting pressure on quarterbacks all season and had not had an issue with that. We got pressure on him a lot less than we typically would, but even when we did, we didn't bring him down, and that killed us. I watching the state game this year, I felt the same way. Y'all's pass rush isn't great, but when y'all did get home, y'all couldn't bring him down. And when he starts to pull off some of those plays on third down and even fourth down where he's dead to rights and he somehow gets away, either runs for a first down or completes a 25-yard pass down the sideline to a guy who's just sitting in a zone flat where there's nobody there, that's demoralizing. And this Georgia defense has so many holes and negative pass rush. They're one of the lowest pressure generating teams in the whole country. That is probably where the key to the game is for Florida. It really just lies with DJ Lagway in this offense. But if I'm DJ Lagway, I'm feeling pretty good about what we can do offensively in this game. So be watching for that. Maybe Georgia finally shows up with defense in this game, but I see it being relatively high scoring.
I think Florida has a chance as long as the five interception Lagway is not out there.
Well, I don't foresee Death Valley and LSU's secondary showing up on this field in Jacksonville. So I think we're both pretty spot on with it being a high scoring, close UGA win. All right, the next game I've got is OU at Tennessee. I like this game a lot, but with how OU just played last week, I think Tennessee's got to be feeling pretty good going into this matchup. With it being in Knoxville, um, I like Tennessee. I've got them winning this game 37-28, two possession game. I don't know that it'll be exactly 9 points, but I feel like Tennessee will find a way to win this game by two possessions. So whether it's two touchdowns or a touchdown and a field goal, I'm kind of at that point with Tennessee. I feel like their offense has shown me everything I need to see. I love their offense. When they run the ball, they're gonna find the passing game. It's just a matter of if they can establish the run. That's the signature of the Josh Heupel offense. If they can establish the run and make you commit to the box and stop the run, it opens up this huge, huge and lethal passing game out wide that not many teams really present a threat near as big as Tennessee does. I just love what they're doing. Joey Aguilar has played better and better as the weeks have gone on. He had a great performance last week against Kentucky, which typically is usually a tough game for Tennessee quarterbacks, but he absolutely lit them up. I think the biggest question for me is going to be Oklahoma's defense. How do they respond after getting lit up by Ole Miss last week? I don't know. They're going on the road into a hostile environment in a quasi rivalry game. I I have a hard time seeing Oklahoma showing up and playing legitimate defense in this game. The caliber that they need to win. They may have some key interceptions or sacks in this game and keep it close, or at some point maybe even take a lead. But I genuinely don't think this team is consistent enough to go into Knoxville and pull out a win. They cannot run the ball, and they have shown that there are holes in this defense that can get exposed by legitimate passing offenses. I think that Tennessee will find those. They are more capable of hitting the big plays than Ole Miss was. Ole Miss will get the big chunk plays. Tennessee will take the top right off of your safeties. So if Oklahoma's not careful and they start overcommitting to the run, those safeties start to get down in the box, Tennessee's going to make you pay for it. So I would definitely be watching that. John Mateer's health is a huge question here. I'd be watching his health specifically. If he's not 100%, or if he goes down and Michael Hawkins enters this game, I'd probably just go ahead and call it there. Chalk it up as a Tennessee W. But I feel pretty good about the Vols getting a win here.
I was a big believer in Oklahoma coming into this year, but that is no longer the case. I mean, they just haven't been able to run the ball with any consistency, and Mateer getting banged up has not helped whatsoever. I feel like they have a pretty well established ceiling, and that's not going to be one that gets them into the playoffs. They also, as I said, they don't have a great offense. Definitely not one that can compete with Tennessee or keep up with Tennessee at Neyland Stadium, especially. I like Tennessee to win this one 34 to 27. I do think Oklahoma's offense has a little success just because Tennessee's defense is not the greatest, but I don't see Tennessee losing this one.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. To me, what really stands out is how one-dimensional their passing offense can be. I felt like Isaiah Centegno was the only receiver on the field against Ole Miss. And I know they have Deion Burks, and he had a couple catches, but I felt like he was the only guy getting targeted the whole game. He's great. Ole Miss's DBs are not that great. Very opportunistic bunch for Ole Miss, so you don't really see them make a lot of plays on the ball. I mean, Centegna played great against Ole Miss despite the fumble on the punt return, which would have set them up in plus territory with a chance to take the lead in the fourth quarter. He was probably the only player on that team that really scared me last week. And we didn't really stop him, but we didn't really even have to because that was the only guy they could get the ball to. So unless they can find other weapons and John Mateer can get going with his legs, I just don't think they keep up. Period. End of story. They already can't run the ball. Them not having production from that position has been surprising to me. I thought Jaden Ott transferring in was going to be probably one of the best running backs in SEC, but something's going on there that doesn't make sense to me. It's definitely not an Oklahoma issue. I think it's a Jaden Ott issue.
Yeah,
So
I expected him to be a huge contributor this year, and that's one of the reasons why I was so high on them. But I don't know what's happened with that. He's done just absolutely nothing.
I would think he probably has a hard reset next year with a different team. So we'll see where he ends up. But I think we're both pretty spot on this prediction, and I feel pretty good about Tennessee in this matchup. All right, moving on to the next game. I have USC at Nebraska. Um, I'm actually pretty excited for this matchup. I can't remember the last time I watched USC play Nebraska. This is a pretty solid throwback game. I feel like it's going to be really competitive. With how these teams match up to me, USC's defense is not really that great, but their offense is very hard to stop. Nebraska's defense is probably one of the bigger strengths of that football team. They're pretty salty. The run game for Nebraska can be good at times. Dylan Raiola has had a couple of good games. Nebraska is just a more consistent and well spread out football team as to where USC is way far and above a more elite offense and average defense. Their run game has been good at times as well, but with the injuries at that position, you just don't really know what you're going to get, especially playing against a solid defensive line unit that Nebraska has. I anticipate this to be close. I know that USC is going to find points, and I fully anticipate Nebraska to probably find a couple big plays against this porous USC secondary. I will take USC 28 to 25, but I do see a scenario where at some point maybe Dylan Raiola and this offense just can't keep up if USC keeps scoring. But with that not being the case, I probably see it being a close game.
Never ever trust Nebraska. That is just something to live by. Doesn't even matter if they're hosting the game. This just seems like one that they're not going to get. In my opinion, USC has the offensive firepower to outpace them. Nebraska's defense isn't great, and I like USC to go in there and win 34-28.
Yeah, the level of play we get from Nebraska's defense will entirely determine the course of this game. Because once USC gets rolling, Makai Lemon starts getting fed. This offense just will not slow down. Jacoby Lane's been a monster too. Jed Mayava's had an incredible season. If the running back position was healthy, I would stamp this as a USCW, but I just don't feel good about that room right now. I think they're 3 or 4 deep right now at that position, and they're still getting some production, which is impressive, but it's not near what they were getting early in the season. So I'll be tuning in for this one for sure. I'm excited about this matchup. Let's see if Nebraska can pull off an upset, but like you just said, never trust Nebraska. I won't be doing that today. So got USC winning probably by a touchdown to a field goal. All right, the final game we have for our top 5 games in the Week 10 preview is Cincinnati taking on Utah and Salt Lake City. This matchup was really hard for me to pick. I think this one in Vanderbilt, Texas, were probably the hardest games for me. I really want to pick Brendan Sorsby and the Bearcats in this game. They're on a roll. I think they are currently on a 7 game win streak since losing to Nebraska in the season opener in a very sloppy night game that just felt off from the get go to me. I've loved how Cincinnati's played. Tommy Walker and Evan Pryor have been running the ball with purpose this season. They're a really solid duo. Brennan Sorsby has been easily one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He should be getting legitimate recognition nationally right now. I'm not seeing him very close in the Heisman odds. I don't think that's very fair, to be honest with you. I know he needs some signature wins, but he's putting up the stats and the kind of plays that you would expect from a top 15 quarterback, top 10 quarterback in the country right now. So I love what I'm seeing from him. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Utah here. I just think that this is clearly far and above the biggest test for this football team so far this season. Nebraska was a tough game on the road, and I think this is going to be much harder than that game. And they dropped that game to Nebraska. Nebraska is just a diet version of Utah with a way less mobile quarterback. Devin Dampier presents so many issues for opposing defensive units and coordinators. I just don't know what Cincinnati's defense is made of yet, even though we're 8 games into the season. I don't feel like they've been tested like this yet. With the kind of consistency in the run game that Utah presents, we saw what they did last week to Colorado. They absolutely obliterated Colorado. I think it was 53-7.
Yeah,
Complete decimation of that football team. Ran all over them with a backup quarterback. And they didn't have a chance. Regardless of who starts at quarterback in this game, I believe Devin Dampier will be healthy. I think I'm going to take Utah 27-23. Like I said, I really want to pick Cincinnati and Brendan Sorsby to get this win to improve to 8-1 and be in a great position in the Big 12. But this just feels like a game that they're going to drop.
we called Cincinnati being in this position about a month ago, ahead of their game at home against Iowa State. Nobody was talking about this team, and we saw the potential for them to be in this position they are right now, and they made it there. But unfortunately for them, I do think they pick up a loss here. Utah is 0 for 2 in big games this year, though. But I do think they finally win this one here with college game day in town. I like Utah with that consistent run game and offense to end up winning here 24-21. And you can't forget last week, they held Colorado to negative 20 yards in the first half.
That's insanity.
This is a really, really good defense, and I think that will help them out here significantly as well.
Yeah, they have one of the top sack leaders in the country as well at defensive end. I think he'll make a huge impact here for the Utes. And like you said about the big games, I think the last big game scenario they had in Utah was big noon kickoff against Texas Tech, which was a 13-10 game going into the fourth quarter. I think if you're Cincinnati, you got to be praying for that fourth quarter Utah team to show up. That's what you want to see. I don't know that we'll see that, but I know Cincinnati is holding out hope for that. This football team has a lot of talent, and they're going to give Utah everything they can handle, but I just feel like Utah is going to be a little bit more talented on that defensive side of the football. All right, getting into our honorable mention preview games for Week 10, we've got 3 matchups. The first I wanted to talk about was Miami at SMU. I think Miami's favored by 12.5 in this game. This game still matters for the ACC title race. Miami needs to win to stay in the race. If they lose this game, they're putting themselves in a really bad position. So, got to get a win here for Miami, and kind of got to get a win here for SMU. They just dropped a game to Wake Forest. They had several opportunities to put this game away. Fumbles were the key in that game for Wake Forest. Almost sold them the game. Ended up getting a fumble to be in field goal range and knocking a game-winning field goal to win 13-12. Super gross game. Kevin Jennings did not have his best outing. I think the SMU bounces back here with a better performance offensively. I don't think it's going to be enough against this salty Miami defensive front. I think they're going to give him a really tough time behind a very poor offensive line for SMU. I'm going to take Miami 34-21. Look for Miami to try to establish the run game. They really forced that last week against Stanford when they struggled early. They started to lean on the run game. Mark Fletcher had a solid performance with several touchdowns. I fully anticipate this team to try to showcase that. They are a legitimate rushing threat as they start preparing for the playoffs.
I like Miami in this one. SMU has just not been that great of a team this year, and Miami really needs to make a statement after losing that Louisville game. So I like Miami to go on the road here and get a solid win, 38-24.
Yeah, I really liked Kevin Jennings last year when he had a little bit more of a supporting cast. Unfortunately, this year with a lot of guys leaving, a lot of turnover and change, he's just not playing the same kind of football that he played last year, and it's not due to a loss of skill. He's still just as talented, but it's unfortunate that they had the drop off that they did from last year to this year. Else, I feel like this would probably be a premier game in the ACC this season. But yeah, I'm rolling with Carson Beck and company here. I think he probably has a big bounce back game. Similar to last week, maybe not as much of a blowout as they had against Stanford, but I bet they start off a little slow and then they start to pull away late in this game. The next game I have is Navy at North Texas. This game has playoff implications, believe it or not. If you had told me this at the beginning of the season, I would have thought you were crazy. But the midshipmen going into North Texas to face the Mean Green and Drew Mestamaker, four playoff chances being on the line. Navy's undefeated. They do have kind of a gauntlet at the end of their season coming up, this being the start of it. North Texas just needs to take care of business here to put themselves in a good position in the American Conference. I like North Texas. Drew Mestamaker's a dog. If you still don't know who Drew Mestamaker is, look him up. He might be one of the best unsung quarterbacks in college football at this point. Threw for over 600 yards last week against Charlotte en route to a blowout win. Think he's leading the NCAA in passing. If not, he's top five. He's definitely up there. He's one of the most talented players in college football, and he's a redshirt freshman. So we're going to get to see more football from him as we move forward going into next season, and hopefully more after that. I'm pretty stoked for him. I kind of hope he sticks it out in North Texas and finishes his career there. Um, I think that he's a great fit for their offense, and he may break some NCAA records long term if he stays there. I really like North Texas. Navy's been great and all, but they haven't played anybody. I just don't think that the style of play that Blake Horvath is giving this team gives them a chance to win in a shootout. It can give them a chance in a close game that's not super high scoring, like a mid 20s to low 30s game. They probably have a chance, but I feel like North Texas is going to eclipse the 40-point mark in this game. So I got them winning 47-28 on top of several passing touchdowns from Drew Mestamaker.
I think I saw somewhere this week that Navy's had the easiest schedule in the nation at this point. I think that's going to show up in this one, but both these teams' defenses have not been very good. So I do expect a shootout here, but I like North Texas to hold on and win 45-42.
Yeah, Blake Horvath is a very exciting player. That was not a knock at him. I just don't think he plays as well in a shootout scenario. And it is good to remember the composite of this team. Like they're a solid football team. They're well coached. They went into the bowl game last year against Oklahoma and won. I can't remember the last time Navy beat an SEC team, but they did it last year. So they return a lot of those same players in similar play style, like they always do with that triple option offense. They've got the components to be an extremely competitive football team. Just because they haven't played anybody doesn't mean they're not capable of beating anybody big yet. We just haven't seen them do it yet because they haven't had the chance. this will be a fun game at some point, probably early on. I would imagine both teams have a solid game plan coming in against weak defenses to find points early. But at the end of the day, I just think that Drew Mestamaker, being the player that he is, and with the weapons that he has on offense, it's just going to be way too much for Navy being on the road here. And finally, for our Week 10 preview, we have Oregon State at Washington State. Rest in peace to the Pac 12. This is the first of two matchups these teams will be playing this season, considering that the schedule alignment for them didn't really wind up being what they wanted it to be. They ended up scheduling a home and away series with each other in the same season, which I think is the first time that that has happened. I'll have to double check that stat, but I can't remember the last time I saw two teams play each other in regular season twice. So with the two teams playing on the field, I just don't see a scenario where Oregon State wins this game. I mean, it has some rivalry tendencies to it that would make me think it'd be more competitive than just an average matchup if these teams didn't play each other previously in history. But considering the roots of this game, I figure it'll be pretty competitive. Um, just a remembrance for the Pac-12, even though Oregon State is 1-7 right now. I think that they'll probably play a little bit higher up to the competition that Washington State brings to the table. Zevi Eckhouse and Kirby Voorhees have played really well down the stretch for this Washington State Cougars team. I do expect them to pull away with a win, but I figure it'll probably be a little closer than people think. The line's probably a little generous. So I'm taking Washington State 41-35 in a shootout. Pac-12 after dark should be a fun game.
I do expect Oregon State to show some fight in this game, but they're so terrible. They're so bad. The only good player on this team really right now is Anthony Hankerson. Washington State, they are extremely due for a win after having two heartbreakers in a row. Or actually, no, they were able to win last week against Toledo at home, a game in which they were an underdog, which is absurd. But I think they win this one here. It's at Oregon State. I don't think it matters. That team is just really bad. I like Washington State here, 38-27.
Yeah, let me correct that. I had that as at Washington State. It is at Oregon State. So that plays a little bit of a factor in it, but that doesn't change how I feel about the game. I doubt there's many fans really even showing up for the Beavs anymore, so probably won't make much of a difference. If anything, might have more Washington State fans there, considering how they played down the stretch. But that is going to do it for us. Episode 15 of the Feel for the Game podcast is in the books. Looking forward to taking a little bit of a break this weekend. We're not traveling anywhere. That is why we haven't broken down a game up to this point for where we're going. We have traveled every single weekend since college football season started. I think we took 1 2 week break, but I had a pretty long hiatus when I went on vacation. So finally taking a break and getting to stay home and enjoy a weekend. Maybe play some golf, do some hunting, and watch a lot of football. Should be fun. We will get back to the grind next week and we will talk about these games. Very excited to come back.